Your life just changed, you got yourself back. Your life just
Welcome to the Patriot Torch. This is Marco Amaya, and yeah, let's talk about what just happened in this country, and I want to talk about Q specifically in this video. Q, it's just weird to me how Q became so big, and I think it's a lot to do with people wanting to hold on to fantasies. The Trump is already moved back home to Florida, Mar-a-Lago. Biden's in there. But I was hearing so much about from people, patriots, and really good intentioned people that are just falling for this Q stuff, and it just has to end because it never came true. None of their predictions came true. The deep state wasn't arrested. It's all a lie. Don't keep waiting for this magical, Santa Claus to show up to arrest Joe Biden, because that's what Q is. It's Santa Claus for adults, basically. So they had these predictions. Bill Barr was going to arrest people, and Bill Barr didn't do anything. He was fired because he sucked so bad. And the attorney general before him, Jeff Sessions, was terrible. I mean, it didn't work out. And I'll tell you why. It's not because Trump, I don't think Trump's some controlled opposition or something. He just wasn't as smart as people thought he was. He's not, people wanted to fantasize about how he's a genius because he's the savior of America, and people really wanted to believe that because it made them feel better about their situation. But the fact of the matter is he's just a man, and he wasn't that smart. He's a smart businessman, and he was very successful, but he didn't know what he was about to face as president. He didn't understand how deep the deep state was. He even said that himself. He didn't realize that you can't, in business, you make good deals, and if they're making money and we're making money, everyone's happy, then it's, that's how business boiled down is really what that's about, right? Just making good deals that make sense for everyone. He thought that he would be able to convince the deep state and all these corrupt politicians to make good deals when they're not about making good deals. It's the exact opposite. They don't even care what's good for this country. That's not what it's about. He thought that he would be able to convince them, like, oh, this makes sense. Why don't you just do it? Because they're committed to evil. They're committed to destroying this country. The deep staters are committed to being traitors. They're not here to help anybody except themselves and the people they work for. They're globalists. They're world government agents. They're New World Order people. They don't care about your rights. They want to take away your rights. They want to take away your freedom. They want to take away your success. It's the exact opposite of what happens naturally in business, where you in business, when everyone wins, then you win. That's business in the free market sense. But in politics, it's about good versus evil. It's a totally different ball game, and so when you're in that ball game, you can't be this whole try to use logic and try to convince your enemies. Like that might work 1 out of 1,000 times. You might have one guy converted to your side, but that's not. It's more of a war when you're in politics. That's why the biggest mistake that Trump made was trusting the system, appointing people that were career politicians and deep state swampers and people that had connections to the deep state, and all these people surrounded him in the White House that were complete traitors all along, and it was just proven by the fact that even Mike Pence, didn't even stand up for the American people on January the 6th to object to the fraudulent electoral votes. He rolled over and justified it. He justified his stupidity. He justified his traitorousness. He was basically just a total traitor from the very beginning, and that's why when you try to think of something he's done, you can't think. It's hard to think of anything because he's so useless. He was just there to screw Trump. That's it. And Trump should have listened to the real hardworking Americans, the real advisors, not these deep state people that act like they know everything when they don't, and they're just there to screw you. Because that's what happened to Trump. He got screwed. He couldn't drain the swamp because he was surrounded by the swamp, and he picked people that were in the swamp to be his advisors and his staff members. Okay? That's why it didn't work. That's why the swamp isn't drained. Okay? I just want to point that reality out because I don't want to keep hearing about how lionizing Trump and all this stuff. It's not reality. I care about the truth. There is positive things that Trump did, though. So I can mention that too. Look, Trump was a huge, massive influence on the American people in a positive way when it comes to exposing fake news, making millions of people realize that the mainstream media is fake news meant to control you and lie to you, which more people know that now than ever before. Maybe even the majority of Americans at this point know that. So that's a huge victory, because now it's one less tool that the globals have to be able to control your mind and control your life, is because people realize that and are flocking to independent news channels to get real information that is more accurate. Now, but the problem is that the globalists and these deep staters, they figured out they could convince these people that are running away from mainstream media to then flock to a fake independent source that isn't actually independent, pretending to be independent, like Q, right? To convince them that there's this magical plan that Trump has, because it sounds so good, because it sounds like the exact opposite of the mainstream media. Yeah, but it's actually still fake. It's a way to pacify you, to make you freeze, so you don't do anything because you think everything's taken care of. It makes the Patriot movement stop in its tracks, because it's like, oh, well, why do I have to do anything when Trump's got it all handled? Just let it happen. And it's always delayed. It's always like, oh, it hasn't happened yet because this is all part of the plan. It's obviously part of the plan. Well, it doesn't make sense for Trump to be out of office and be able to do all these magical plans of arresting all these deep staters, and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton and Obama and all this stuff. He had powers. He technically had those powers when he was in office. Why would he then do something when he loses those powers, when he's out of office? And then you expect him to do that? No, he doesn't have the opportunities that he had before when he was in office to even do anything like that. And he, quite frankly, he should have, because we had an invasion of foreign interference, actual real foreign interference, not like the one that they claimed Trump had Russian interference. It was obviously BS. They couldn't get him on any of that. But we had the communist Chinese investing hundreds of millions of dollars to Dominion voting systems. So we have, connections and proof to show that actually multiple nations were involved in influencing the elections in a big way, stealing votes, fake votes, all this stuff, machines switching votes. It was so massive that it was ridiculous for Trump not to use the military to get involved with this emergency situation, because he was saying, oh, we need to use all these legal ways, and yeah, we did use all the legal ways, yeah, but what if the court says no? Because that's what happened. The court said they didn't do anything. Basically, the court rejected everything. They didn't do anything about the fraudulent votes because they were compromised, and all the way up to the Supreme Court. So what do you do when all the courts don't work? You can't just be like, oh yeah, let these foreign nations and Communist Chinese Party just take over because the court said so. You think that's the way that this country was founded? Was just waiting for the court to tell you what to do? No, you have an emergency where a foreign entity is trying to infiltrate your country. That's when you have to use the military, is to defend this country from foreign invasions. And this was a political, informational invasion. It wasn't a physical military invasion. Trump should have still used force to do something, because that's how you protect this country in emergency situations like we had, but he didn't do it, so now we lost that opportunity, so that's a disappointment. And so that's why it doesn't make sense then for Q people to believe, oh, somehow magically in the next couple months that the military is in control and they're gonna overturn everything. It's like the military is not in control. There's 30,000 troops surrounding to protect Biden to get him inaugurated. They were protecting Biden. They're not overthrowing Biden. They're the ones being controlled. The military is like a tool. They're not the masters. The military is a tool of the people in power, and that's what this Q thing. Everything they think of doesn't make sense. They also believe. I heard this too several times. JFK Jr. is magically just didn't actually die in the plane crash. He's actually been alive this whole time secretly, and he's actually helping Trump overthrow the deep state. Like, what are you talking about? It's like believing in magical elves, you know. And this probably will make some people mad because they want to latch onto these fantasies. Well, there's no evidence of any of that, you know. Oh yeah, but they'll point out like, oh well, the plane crash was suspicious and all these things, and yeah, it's suspicious. Yeah, probably because they were wanting to cover up the fact that the deep state killed JFK Jr. instead of not being an accident. The same way they were killing all the other Kennedys. You know, I mean, if there's a pattern where the deep state's killing Kennedys, why would there be some magical hidden entity all of a sudden that wants to pretend to kill JFK Jr. and then have him secretly hidden forever and helping Trump, you know, 40 years later, 50 years later, or what? No, I mean 30 years later, whatever. Overthrow the deep state. It's like, that doesn't make sense. And that's the problem with Q. You have to make all these leaps and jumps just to make it make sense. You have to come up with all this far-fetched links that have no proof. And that's why it's failed and it didn't happen. And it was a psyop just to fool you. Because to begin with, Q, how can you even trust this anonymous source to begin with? It's anonymous. It could be anybody. It could be deep state. It could be the guy down the street. It could be a guy in freaking China. It could be a guy in Russia. It could be, you know, there's not a real name, a real reputation to back up. They don't have to be worried about their reputation. They can just keep telling you, oh well, you know, now Biden's inaugurated because Trump has to let this roll out so that way he has all the proof about who's against him, and he can put them in a situation where they commit treason so that he can finally do something. Well, they've been saying that forever. These people, these deep staters and Biden, all these, they've been committing treason for years. There's already plenty of things that they could be tried for, plenty of things they could be arrested for. There's no need to continually let the Communist Chinese Party take over the White House so that way we know what to do. That's ridiculous. That's because that's what's happening. They took over the White House. I mean, the Communist Chinese agent, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, all these people linked to all this corrupt globalist operations, they're in there now. And they had to install him, and that's why they had to have military protect him, because they were concerned about protests and people, because they're so unpopular. And the military, yes, there's a bunch of military people that actually are pro-Trump, that actually don't want to, that dislike Biden and don't like him. Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're in control. It just means that that's why Democrats were concerned about a rebellion, because they're concerned about troops just not obeying them. Because they're so hated. So that's why they're trying to purge the military of Trump supporters and whatnot. That's natural, and that makes sense, because that's the Democrats, because the majority of military is probably pro-Trump. The only thing is that they're not in control. That's the thing. If they were in control, why would they let a communist Chinese agent get into the White House? They're not in control. So Q is just Santa Claus for adults. Don't get pulled into it. There's a lot of good people that are pulled into it, and it hurts the movement. Because how are you going to find a real solution to the tyranny we're about to face if you're constantly waiting for Santa Claus to show up to put him in jail? It's just that's not the real solution. You have to find real solutions. The Q is a psyop. It was just a way for you to distract you from the truth. And don't let Q discredit the truth about the New World Order and the world government, the globalists, because those things are real. They talk about real stuff, and then they tell you all this bull crap to then make you think the bull crap's real because they were telling you the truth about this other stuff. So, but the thing is that the stuff that is true about world government and Satanism and pedophiles in the elite circles that are running these cults of blackmail rings in D.C. to corrupt politicians and bribe them and all this stuff, that's real. That's clearly happening. Okay, Epstein and all that, and connected to all these big names, that's all real. But the whole idea of Trump being this genius is not real. He's not a massive genius. As a matter of fact, if he had listened to Alex Jones Alex Jones was warning about Mike Pence from the very beginning, that he was a swamp creature, he looked suspicious, there was something wrong about him. Look how that has been proven right. Trump should have listened to Alex Jones more. Alex Jones actually had a lot of the information that could have prevented a lot of the problems that we were facing today had Trump listened to his advice about picking certain people. Because a lot of the people that Trump picked were bad picks. And Alex Jones knew it from the beginning. Because there's good intel coming into InfoWars. There's good intel in certain people in this country. And those are the people that, if we ever have a chance in the office, again, in the presidential office, or any government for whatsoever, if we secede and we have a new president, there has to be the understanding that you have to fire every last rat from has any possible connection to the deep state has to be fired. You can't use them to your benefit. You have to get rid of all of them, fire all of them, replace them, and appoint them with hardworking Americans that come from the streets, basically. Just real American people that care about this country, not any career politicians and all this stuff. Like, we're tired of it. Everyone knows the GOP is filled with traitorous snakes now that betrayed Trump at the first sign that he was losing. And they were there's only a few handful of people like Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, Matt Gaetz, and a couple people that are willing to stand up when push comes to shove about our election integrity and whatnot. But the majority of the Congress is illegitimate and it's traitorous, and who knows how many of them are fraudulently elected at this point, right? And now that we know that elections are rigged, who knows? So that's what I mean, is that it's illegitimate that Joe Biden is in the office in the executive branch. That's completely illegitimate. It's not a real president. So everything that we're going to face now is basically illegal. All their orders and mandates and stuff, it's already illegal now, but it's going to be even more worse and worse and worse. And so we have to face that reality, and that way we can move forward. Q is just not happening. Stop believing the Q stuff. It's just not. Why, here's the thing. Here's the message about Q. You're putting your eggs in a basket that's controlled by the enemy. Why are you putting your hopes and dreams in a fantasy instead of putting your hopes and dreams and faith in Jesus Christ? That's the real plan, God's plan, that we have to depend on, rely on, and have faith in. Anything else is going to be a lie. You don't depend on the Q. You don't depend or rely on any man, any woman, any entity other than God. That's it. That's why I feel like that's part of the reason why people are still want to hold on to the Q thing, even when it's proven that none of it happened and it just keeps on being delayed, so supposedly, because they want to hold on to it because they're having too much reliance on something else other than Jesus. It's just Trump just has to do something. It's just Trump is the answer. Trump is this, Trump is that, the military is the answer. No, there's no answers other than Christ. That's it. And you getting involved with the fight. That's it. Okay? Don't rely on anybody that's going to make you disappointed. There is hope. And there's always hope because of God. There's always hope. Don't be like, just because Trump actually lost and Trump actually we actually had our votes stolen from us. Don't let that be the reason why you give up. It's actually more of a reason to fight. That means that this is the real fight beginning right now. The globalists are coming after us. They're going to come after our rights. This is when we get together as American people and start fighting together, because we're going to have to be non-compliant to all these mandates, non-compliant to all kinds of legal orders, and the police have to start standing up. The military has to start standing up and fighting against it. And that's how we're going to do this, is with faith in God, in the real justice of this universe. The real justice is not going to come from a man. It's not going to come from just some anonymous plan from some weirdos on the internet. It's not going to happen like that. So let's have faith in Christ. Let's move forward, and I will see you in the next one.